Welcome to Beyond the Syllabus, where we talk with superintendents, curriculum leaders, and education innovators who are rethinking what school can be and how it can better serve the academic and personal needs of every learner. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Syllabus. Super excited to speak with Dr. Wendy Birhanzel today. Dr. Birhanzel has been in public education for over 20 years, has led 2 elementary schools to receive National Blue Ribbon and Title I Distinguished Honors Awards, and earned the 2025 AASA Women in School Leadership Award. Dr. Birhanzel, super great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to have a chat this morning.
Likewise, I was reading a little bit about your background in, I believe it was like a school CEO article, and your path to education was not exactly direct. In fact, it stated that you did not want to be in education because you had 5 generations worth of educators. Can you tell us a little about your journey?
Yes, I grew up in an education family. So my mom was an English teacher, debate coach. My father was math teacher, football, basketball coach. Grandmother was a college professor. Grandfather was actually a superintendent. And even great grandmother was an English professor. And so, education is what I probably should have done from the beginning. But like most teenagers, I was not going to do what my family thought was a good idea. And so I went to school to be a math major. I love math, and I was going to be an actuarial scientist and figure out statistics and work with numbers. And I did one internship and realized I need to be in the people business. So it switched over quickly and became an educator, and then was a teacher, and then was never going to leave the classroom, then became a literacy coach, loved that job, then became an assistant principal, district office, and now I'm honored to be the superintendent.
Yeah, that's I love the indirectness, but also directness of that. I feel like that's usually how things go when everyone in your family is one way. Everyone in my family is salespeople. My mom, brother, sister, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, everyone. And I think because of that, I was obsessed with psychology because I wanted to figure out what was wrong with all of them.
Correct.
So seems like you had a similar experience.
Yes.
Very
Very
cool.
much.
And so you spent a good part of your career in California and have been in Colorado for about the last 15 years, right?
Correct.
So what exactly was your career in California and how has it transitioned to Colorado?
So I started teaching in California. I was in South Central at a large elementary school, 1,200 kids in an elementary school. Um,
Wow.
and I was teaching first grade. Many of my kids didn't speak English. And at that time, I didn't speak any Spanish. So that was a learning experience for all of us. And it was really at that time that I realized the issue with equity or lack of equity in education. Again, I grew up in a family of educators, so I had a great education experience. I had my own tutors in English and math with my parents at home. Their friends are my teachers, so I had help everywhere I looked, and I just had very involved parents who put education first. When I went to South Central, and my experience there was these students just didn't have the same opportunities. The school that I taught at, there were cockroaches running across the floor, there were bullet holes in the bungalow. We did not have a lick of grass anywhere. It was concrete jungle. We had barbed wire on the top to keep people out. Just the environment was not conducive for equity for everyone to learn. And then when you look at the turnover of staff, so I was on a team of, we had 12 teachers in our grade level. And by the end of the year, only 4 of us were left. So
No way.
people had come and gone, and we had long-term subs, and they would leave. And it's just, the message these students were getting is that they didn't have value and no one wanted to work with them or at those schools. And so I stayed, and I kept, getting to know my families, learned Spanish really quickly, and just loved the work there. I then moved into a literacy coach at the same school because I realized, although, great things were happening in my classroom, it wasn't pervasive throughout our whole school. So I became a literacy coach to help other teachers learn how to provide quality instruction for all students. From there, I moved into an assistant principal role. And at that time, I also attended University of Southern California and got my doctorate in leading urban school systems. And so that really has led to my passion about Title I environments and ensuring that a zip code doesn't define success, and students, regardless of where they grow up, have opportunities in life. And that is really what we can change at the end of the day.
Well, fight on, first of all.
Yes.
And
Thank you
second
for
of all,
recognizing that.
of course, always, always. I grew up an SC fan, had a USC doormat, blankets, the whole nine. But second of all, what an unfortunate environment to one start your career in, but two for those students, right? I mean, you described it perfectly. You grew up with so many resources and help around you just naturally, right? And I think we take for granted the idea that not every student has that.
Absolutely, and I think, we'll get into it, but, one of our philosophies here in D2 is we remove barriers and we make things free for our students to participate in, and I get pushback a lot of times from people if that's not the school's job or why do you do that? And at the end of the day, these are my 13,000 kids.
Yeah.
Like, they are all mine, and I want them to have the opportunity that their neighbors up the road have, that in another state have, and how dare we say that our kids don't deserve that? And again, you know, one of my favorite new quotes that I just always wanna say is, "Potential is universal, opportunity is not."
Mm,
We're doing is we're changing that because
yeah.
opportunity should be. It should not matter where you grew up. It should not matter what zip code you were born into. Our kids want to succeed just like everyone else. And that is my job to make sure that we provide those opportunities so they have every chance to be as successful as possible.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Potential is universal, opportunity is not. That's a good one. That's a
Mhm.
really good one.
My new
I,
favorite.
I had a similar what'd you say?
My new favorite.
Yeah, so it might be my new favorite too, I might steal
Mhm.
it from you. But I grew up in a similar education environment. I was in a dual immersion school in San Juan Capistrano, and so, 99 kids in my 5th grade, 90 of which first generation Latino students, and probably had half a parent in the country on average. I mean, just came from super underprivileged backgrounds, and I, like you, was very fortunate to come from a family who really valued education, who provided the resources that were required. But that was not the case for my peers. And what I thought upon reflection of that experience was, well, what a disservice to treat every single student the exact same way, right? And so that for me happened in kind of high school, where I really started to argue with and wrestle with the one size fits all model. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of been the passion for my work and my mission. And we can go deeper into that later. But you mentioned D2. I'm curious, what has been kind of your experience at D2 so far, and what are some things you're super excited about right now?
So I am honored and privileged to serve as superintendent here. I was a principal at two different schools here in the district, and that's where we did move the ball to get Title One distinguished and Blue Ribbon national recognitions at both schools. And during that time, I really realized that my role could be bigger and I could influence more. Again, I never wanted to leave teacher. I never wanted to leave principal, but I realized my influence could be at a larger scale. So I came to central office, was in curriculum instruction assessment, and then became the superintendent. Um, our passion is really to just open up doors for our students and our community. So we are the southeast part of Colorado Springs. We are the very diverse part of Colorado Springs, both racially, economically, religion, everything. We are just a diverse melting pot of amazing people. And we want to have a voice. We want to share all the amazing things that our kids and community alike bring together. And we do that through putting our kids in these spaces where people not only learn from our kids, but kids learn from them. And so we help educate our community about what does diversity mean. We help our kids see that they do belong at the table. They do belong in these important decisions because education is about them, and that's who should be driving some of the decisions.
100%. 100%. It's so cool that you guys are in kind of a niche, diverse community there. How does that come out in terms of your school district culture?
So when I came to D2 from California, the culture was not super positive. It was, known as maybe the district no one wanted to go to. You didn't teach there unless you couldn't get a job anywhere else. Now we have the highest teacher retention we've ever had, the highest admin retention in the state last year. Um, and we've done that through relationships and the culture, right? But the culture is built through relationships and trust. We have high expectations of our folks, and I every time we have new staff, I tell them this is not an easy place to work, and I don't apologize for that because our kids deserve nothing but the best. But I do promise you, we will provide every support to make sure you are successful in helping meet kids' needs. And so we really have a unified group here of employees of everyone is on board. It is about kids. It is a kids first culture. So much so that, we have a lot of risk taking of if you have a new idea, you can bring it to me, give me all the details. but also be ready that my first question is going to be, what did kids say about it? Because you need to get feedback from the kids because that's who it's going to affect. And so, not that kids get to make every decision in isolation, but we do need to have consideration of if we're putting policies in place that are going to affect them, we need to hear from them. And a lot of times they can tell us the landmines to avoid or how to roll it out a little bit better. And our kids have just become leaders in our district. We have two student board reps on our actual school board, one from each of our comprehensive high schools who have a huge voice on our board. And every time we go somewhere, so if we go to a city council meeting or if we go to a state of the city event, you will see me and kids because at the end of the day, that's what we're about, and that is who the funding should be for, and that's who we need to propel.
That makes a lot of sense. I was just pulling up an article, another article that I read, and you talk a lot about putting kids first and how that creates different opportunities. You also mentioned earlier on in that same article this idea about the people business, right? Kind of the human centric, people first approach seems to be really core to how you operate as an educator and as a leader. Can you talk a little bit more about what people first means to you?
I think it's the old premise of people don't care what you know until they know you care, right? And we really walk that to a T here in D2. I am in schools every week, not the same schools, but I'm in schools every week. So much so that I was at a school for the second time this school year, and a teacher told me who just moved to us from another district, they'd never met their superintendent in 6 years, and they've already seen me twice
Wow.
in their classroom. And I already know the person's name. I know she has a pug at home. I asked about her dog. So it's not just about being present, but it's about really being present. So I know our custodian's going through a hard time and I reach out and say, how are you? Can I do anything? Go and meet with the transportation team. Tell them how important they are. They are the first greeting for our kids and the last greeting at the end of the day. They are game changers in our district and we're a heavy bus district. So, you know, it matters and people's opinions matter. And also, I'm very transparent that I am not the expert. You do not want me driving the school bus because there's too many curbs in the way, but I need to learn from you what we can do to help you do a better job in your role. And that goes from the top to the bottom. Our board is very, very open to hearing feedback. Our schools know that they can reach out at any time with a suggestion, a question. They will hear from me or executive team. Our parents know that. It's just we're very transparent. And I think we value people's voices. So taking time to really get to know our people, I think it's hard. I always tell our people, I don't want to sit in an ivory tower, quote unquote, district office and make decisions when I'm not on the front lines.
Yeah.
That's not fair to anyone. And how dare I think I can make a decision when I don't know what's going on? So I always hear from the experts, who is not myself in many areas, because they're doing the hard work every day. And, many of our times, our kids are the experts. And so we go to our kids because our kids have great trust in us. They tell us things to help us lead to a different place. And they're just so proud of the work and being from D2 that we're all in it together.
There's so much gold in that. First of all, the power in that teacher seeing you twice already. I mean, when did the school year start?
We just started week 3.
Week 3. So 3
Mhm.
weeks and that teacher has seen you twice and didn't see your previous superintendent in 6 years. I mean, that's powerful. That's how
Mhm.
you build culture. That's how you build trust, right? And that just speaks volumes. And I love the idea too of oftentimes kids are the experts, right? I mean, education, curiosity, philosophy talks about the pureness of a child's curiosity, right? And how if we spent more time listening to that, we would uncover much more than we think. And then thirdly, I love the notion that you aren't the expert, you're surrounded by experts, right? And that's what good leaders do, whether you're leading a company or you're leading a school district or you're leading a team, whatever it is, that's what leaders do, right? They surround themselves with people who are better at specific things than them. But what we are the expert as the person leading a district, as the person leading a business, is figuring out how we can support all of those people and put them in a position to do their absolute best. Can you talk a little bit about how your leadership principles have maybe grown or evolved throughout the course of your career and what you really carried close to your heart now as superintendent?
Yeah, and I think it will be tied mainly to advocacy. You go to I did go to a traditional education school, was a teacher, was the principal, was the CIA person, but I never was really involved in advocacy and I didn't really understand the power of advocacy until I got into this seat as superintendent. And I think it's also different based on your district, but we are one of the most diverse districts in the state of Colorado. And so we are unlike most others in the state. And that's just a fact. So many people just don't even understand like what barriers happen for our kids or what, trauma they might come to the table with. And so it's easy to say that everyone can do XYZ. Well, I'm always there to say why we can't do it like that. Or have you considered, And so I am very, very active in advocacy on behalf of our kids and our
Yeah.
district and our community. So that looks like going to, like, just today, our CFO and a student went to city council meeting to advocate for something.
Wow.
Um, Next week I'm having a meeting with legislators about some legislation they want to write, and I'm going to give feedback. And we do that at the state and national level because we have stories to tell, we have data to share. And even if it doesn't go our way at the end of a vote, in a Senate vote, at the end of the day, it's our job to speak up. And we can't complain if we don't advocate and share the other side. And so every session for the last 5 years, I've testified at the state capitol, as have students, because students, again, we're making these policies at different levels for students, and we haven't asked students what the impact is. And so my students are very, very professional when they have ideas and they share, but they're also very researched, and they can tell from my experience, from their experience, here's what it's like. Here's what it is like to be a student, and here's what it does look different in different districts. And so just the advocacy work, I think, is huge. And I think a lot of leaders don't take time to do that work. But I will also say it only happens because I have an amazing school board who supports that work and an executive team and leadership in schools. So I can be at these places and I can speak out because we do have the stories. We do have great things happening. So we kind of all have roles to play within the district. And I've really found my niche with the advocacy work and just telling the story of what it really is like to be in public education right now.
Yeah, yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, I think what you say about we're making these legislative decisions without about students without asking students. I think that kind of sums up the evolution of the education system as a whole,
Hmm.
right? I mean, we've created this system to propel kids into their future. We've created these curriculums, we've created these standards, these textbooks, these whatever, without asking students. And what has that gotten us,
Hmm.
right? I think taking a really student centric approach, at least for me in my work, is super important. It sounds like it's the same for you.
It is. And right now we're in a place that any policy we write in district that affects students, the students are co-authors.
Wow.
Because again, at the end of the day, they need to learn, and that actually has helped our students, have opportunities later because they've actually helped write school policy. Who can say that when they're
Yeah.
graduating?
Yeah.
But and they don't always agree. They are teenagers, so they do not always agree. And just like a funny, cell phones, we got rid of cell phones in the classroom, and they were okay with no cell phones K-8, and then the high schoolers like, but we need them because we're high school, right? Because it's different. But we got to a place where we don't have cell phones during instructional time, but they helped write that whole policy. They helped write, how do we roll it out? How do we explain it to families? How do we help teachers be successful? I'm meeting with them next week actually to get feedback of how's it going. Tell me the loopholes, give me the inside scoop of what's really happening and not happening. And we've built that trust. And so they want it to be as successful as we want it to be. And they have pride in this. This is something they've done and they're seeing implemented in their own school.
That's cool. That's cool. And I think it's special too that you have the transparency even with your teachers for them to be able to say, hey, here are the loopholes kids are finding. Here are the
Mhm.
things that are going really poorly. I think there's a lot of communities or teams out there where leadership doesn't get full transparency from those working below them because they're afraid of that scrutiny or they're afraid of being seen as, oh, well, I'm not successfully implementing this. When in reality, we're all doing it together, right? And transparency is the way that we can improve and grow.
Yeah, and I think so another phrase I'm kind of known for is we own our ugly. And what I mean by that is we are transparent and we only grow if we know what the ugly is. We can't fix it if no one's talking about it. And so with kids, I really work with them a lot of I need to know the real deal. I need to know our teacher's not turning in or creating assignments for you. I need to know what makes this teacher better than this teacher because we want that experience for everyone. And then with staff, it's I need to know. If I don't know, I can't help fix the problem. And I think they've seen now over the past few years, both students, staff, and families, that when you do bring a problem with solutions, we can work through it. And then you see change actually happen. We're not just, doing a survey and people are complaining and then we just move on to do the same thing next year.
Yeah.
We are taking that feedback. We are listening to you. We are going to the experts to say, okay, you've identified a problem. You are the expert. So let's talk through how we can fix this.
And that's the biggest difference, right? There's a difference between asking for feedback and then doing something about it, right? And I think that's how you lose trust, is if you just ask for feedback and nothing gets done, right? Because then
And
it's like,
that's one
well,
of the most frustrating things as an educator because you take like it feels like 1,000,009 surveys and
yeah,
then you never see any change. And so you're like, I'm just going to answer eight everything because it doesn't matter anything
right,
anyway, right? And so we do a culture and climate survey, we do a school quality survey, but then we also give feedback to the schools and it's posted on our website of what are we doing well, what are our areas to focus on at each school as well as the district level. And then we go back to the places and we address it and ask for help fixing certain things.
yeah. That's really powerful, and again, just creates such a good culture throughout. I want to talk a little bit about the bond that you successfully spearheaded. Can you share some information on that?
Yeah, so we passed a bond of $180 million 6 years ago. So our community said yes. And our bond work was the plan was to touch every one of our 20 schools and add on some 6, 8 wings into K5. So we're creating K8s by adding the middle school section. It was overwhelmingly passed. And I do want to just say it's a Title I community. So we're talking families that had to decide, can I have McDonald's or do I pay, for a bond to help the school look good and be functional? And our community said, education matters and this is what we're going to vote for. And so we passed it. We were able to do over $250 million worth of work on that 180 million because we did interest and we did smart investments. We touched every building. We rebuilt a total K8. So we took it down to the ground and built it back up. We added 2 new wings. We added different CTE spaces in both of our high schools. And we did a bunch of curb appeal at the front of our building. So our families have pride when they have a school in their neighborhood. And, it's a welcoming environment. Many of our schools you would walk in today from 5 years ago and you wouldn't even recognize them. You'd think they're brand new schools. It's the lighting, the furniture we put in there, the colors. It's just so inviting and engaging. And I think one of the things that why is it so important for our community is many of our kids have never been the first in anywhere. They're in an apartment that's been there with 20 different renters and they are just the next one. Many of our kids said, I've never seen a brand new school. They've never seen a brand new room. And they have so much pride in their spaces and they feel so appreciated and so valued. And, you know, education, the environment matters. And we know that research has told us that, but we don't always pay attention to that. And I can tell you through the last 5 years of our bond work, I can write my own research paper about just the way they carry themselves, the pride they have, their families too. I mean, people want to come visit the schools, and we have more community partnerships now that are renting out spaces for different meetings. And it's just, we have some of the nicest schools in the city, and I'm proud that our kids get to go to that every day.
That's amazing. I mean, first of all, the simple fact of being able to do $250 million worth of work on a $180 million bond is impressive in and of itself. But being able to pass that sort of thing in a Title One community, I mean, kudos to you guys. That speaks louder than anything over the community that you have there, and the value that they place on education.
And I think that goes back to, how do you do that? Because there's all kind of strategies of how do you pass a bond? How do you pass a increased tax levy? And we just this past fall passed an MLO for Colorado. So that's our community. And that was for teacher increased salary and for free college. And so again, we asked our community, do you value these things and will you help make sure these are happening? And we were one of the only districts who asked for a tax increase in the whole state that passed, and we were the only title district. And I think that speaks again to the trust that our community has, in the district doing right, that we're doing the right things, we're supporting their kids, but also The community speaking loudly time and time again, they value education and they will do whatever they can to help their students and the whole community rise up and have a quality education.
And that's one thing that I didn't realize when I started working in education. Like I said, I came from a family who valued it. I came from a family who was able to provide me with any resource that I needed. And I didn't have that perspective of, oh, valuing education is a thing that some people don't do. Right. And I really started to notice that when go, I mean, I'm in districts and schools similar to you almost every week. And there are some teachers who are like, oh, that student just can't get him to do anything. And I'm like, why? Like, what's going on there? And the response is, oh, well, their parents just don't care about education, so they don't feel like they have to do anything. And I'm like, really? That's a thing? And every school I go to, it's a thing, it's a thing, it's a thing, and it's mind boggling to me. So again, just kudos to you all and that community for placing that value on it. It's super super inspiring.
And I think you have to be strategic, right? So our community, you could look at our parent involvement honestly and say our parents don't care because they don't always come. We don't have room moms in our classrooms because our families are working honestly 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah,
Or, dad is working somewhere else and comes on the weekend, or grandma's raising the whole family. So we cannot judge that family situation. But when they vote 2 times in 5 years to pay more money so their kids can have education, I think that speaks louder than any room mom in any classroom supporting what we're doing. And they really value us. They look at us as a resource. They trust that we're their trusted partner. They want us to help advocate when they need help. And they share all their, stories of how we can better help them. And many of our families, unfortunately, didn't have great education in their background. So they didn't have a good elementary education experience or a high school experience. And many of our families don't have anyone college educated in their families. And so they can't even start to have that conversation or know the questions to ask. It's not that they're not involved, it's they didn't have that experience. And so we have to close those gaps and give that whole family that experience so they can help navigate and make the best choices for their kids.
and it seems like these families are making an effort to make sure that their children have opportunities that they didn't have growing up.
Yes. And I think, the saying every generation wants better for their kids. I don't think that's true everywhere, honestly, but I can say in D2 that is true. That we have families who want nothing but the best for their kids. And it can be scary if their kid's going to college because they don't even know what that experience is like and what's going to happen. And, that's scary when you can't help guide your child.
For
But they
sure.
trust us. We partner with them. We provide all the supports possible. And with our mill levy, we provide free college. So um, you know, it's just a great partnership and really helping change the whole trajectory of poverty and families and community.
Can you say more about that to our listeners here who might not fully grasp that? When you say free college, can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, so we used to offer something called D2 Promise, and that is free 2 years of college. We have a community college right in our boundaries, so we work with them. Free 2 years of college, and you can get an AA degree, you can get a certificate, you can get credits that you just transfer to a 4-year degree, but 2 years free. And it was free, but it was after all your other scholarships or Pell Grant. We just put on the ballot last fall that our voters just passed. It's the first in the nation, actually, first dollar scholarship. So our students get their tuition and everything paid first, and anything Pell or anything scholarship wise on top of that, they get to keep. And why
Wow.
that matters for our community is our kids, even with the free college for 2 years, were struggling because they still had to work a full time job or they still had to help with transportation for younger siblings or be the daycare. And so now with the first dollar scholarship, they can use that extra scholarship money that they might be able to pocket so they don't have to get a full-time job. They can concentrate on school. They can really be college students like many of us got to be and just focus on college and, having a fun few years. Our kids never got that experience because they had to still work and then figure out, how to help their family. And so now they get to have the real college experience and they get to focus and be successful and find whatever career that they might be interested in.
That's amazing. And you said the first district in the country to have something like that?
Yes, first district in the country with the first dollar publicly funded, sorry. So it's our community funded it. We're the first partnership that has that in the nation.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Wow. I could talk about this with you all day. I want to transition a little bit into some of the things going on in the day to day at D2. Obviously, the last several years have been a massive whirlwind when it comes to technology, AI, all of the new things that are coming. How do you guys think about that, and what does your adoption look like?
Um, I'm smiling because my favorite is when people are like, "We're gonna ban it and have policies that we're not gonna do it." And I'm like, "You are clearly clueless because people are doing it already and you won't even know." We are some of the early adopters in the state. We're part of a cohort. Um, I'm part of a board to write a playbook of how to implement it safely in districts. Our team, our high schools have really taken on some of our middle schools, some of our elementary. We use it and we expect people to use it. And so we help train people on how to use it. So, what does it look like to help with a lesson plan? What does it look like to help with engagement of kids? We teach kids, how do you not plagiarize? How do you use it appropriately? Because again, I think it's always fascinating when we just say we're not going to do it, but kids are doing it anyway. So we have to teach them how to appropriately use it. I know I use it daily in my work. I have an AI bot named Harrison. And it just helps save time, it helps get the ideas out, and then, I know all the things that I need to edit and figure out, but it's really a strategy of really being with the times and accessing what is available out there. I did do a doctoral dissertation, and I do wonder how much different it would have been had I had some AI tools back in the day, but that's just a little, bitterness, but our kids do it. When we did a survey, over 85% of our teachers are using it in some
Wow.
way. Our kids will tell you they're all using it in different ways. Many times they don't even realize it's an AI system
Yeah.
interacting with them. Um, but we're doing it in a safe way because we are concerned about the mental health. You hear stories of students create this relationship with an AI personality. And so we do have a lot of monitoring going on and education. But at the end of the day, our kids know more than us. So they help train us too. And they share what we need to be aware of and what kids are doing and how they're getting around our firewalls or our systems. And so we're here, we're embracing it. We are also a risk taker district, so we take calculated risks when it's the right work to do. But at the end of the day, I've seen the research that said AI is not going to take many jobs, but it is going to take the jobs of people who don't know how to use AI. And so that's
Community.
how we teach our kids is you're going to have to use it. Whenever you graduate high school, you will have to use it in your workplace, in your college experience. At some point, you're going to have to use this plus so much more that we haven't even uncovered yet. So, the best thing we can do is embrace it, all learn together, be very transparent about it, and just jump in together to learn it.
Well, I appreciate your perspective on that. I think in the education space, that's a more rare perspective than I'd like to see. But as someone building an AI company, that is refreshing to hear. So, and you mentioned too, as a superintendent in your own day to day, you're using AI. For the other superintendents and district leaders listening, can you list a couple things you use AI for and how it helps?
Yes. So, and I use different platforms, but some, depending on, we use Magic School a lot, with our staff, but I also use it for presentations. It will develop the slides for you and then you edit and make it your own. And, I will say just as a caveat, which you clearly know, but it's all about the prompt you use and the
Mhm.
specifics. So, you have to be as clear as you need to so you can get the information back. But I use it for letters of recommendation. I use it for letters of support for community partners. I use it for scheduling purposes. I use it for if I have a big report that I need to summarize, I will put the PDF in there and it will summarize the points for me, make sure I didn't miss anything. Um, it's just so many ways to use it. And you just have to train your mind to think differently, right? So instead of all these manual tasks, you have to think, oh, I could do that in a different way. And then you have to play with it. So I spent all summer doing a bunch of AI classes and just getting to know what tools I like, which are different than my assistant superintendent's favorite tools. And that's okay, but we both use it a lot during the day. And when I talk to my superintendent colleagues and they're like, I don't know, that scares me. And I'm thinking, well, how do you lead a system where people are using it, your staff and students alike, and you've never even logged in? So we have to at least experience a little bit. I would say that I am more comfortable in that space than most superintendents, like you mentioned. But that's because if I'm going to lead a system and make policies and help support, I need to know the experience that our kids and staff are having.
100%. And how do you think AI plays into informing pedagogy and changing instruction and the actual learning experience for students?
So one thing we've done is really helped in the SPED realm of it can really help with your IEPs, and it can help you generate IEP goals. And, our teachers are so overworked in the United States, not just D2. But our teachers do so much on a daily basis. And AI has such good tools to help with the IEPs, to help with differentiation strategies you might not have thought of, to help you plan a lesson and then you tweak it to what your students need. And that's okay. Like, that's what you should be doing because then you can be the engaging instructor delivering that content. And, we've also worked with our teachers of how to do reverse instructions. So have the teachers or kids learn from an AI bot or a video, and then you teach on the back end. So just being really creative and flexible. And I think also knowing when things don't work. Again, I've talked that I'm very transparent. So when things don't work in AI like I want them to, which often happens, I share that and I share my frustrations, but I don't stop doing it, right? I just share, yes, this is frustrating and I don't like that tool because whatever, but I use this tool because this really helps me. And then when someone shares, a teacher, staff member, student, I'm always like, tell me how that works. Show me how that works. Can I just book 15 minutes with you? Can you just show me how that works? And then I decide, is that going to work for me or not? But I'm always wanting to learn more because I want to be better at my job and I want to be able to better support all of our students and staff.
What is your long-term vision for education? Not in 5 years, not in 10, in 50, 60, 70 years. What do you hope education looks like?
Um, so one thing that, because of my advocacy answer earlier, won't surprise you, but I want the political drama to stop being involved in education. Charter schools versus public schools versus private schools. Like, can we all just work together for kids at the end of the day? If we just put all our money in the right place and supported all kids, regardless of what school they go to, opportunities matter. And so, we sit next to a neighbor school district who can do a fundraiser and raise 2 million in a weekend. We don't even ask for fundraisers for our kids for like popcorn because that's just not our community and that's not something I'm going to ask parents to do. And so the equity piece is real and we really need to look at how we fund and how we support, and then we need to support innovative practices. So when we have people, I say that classroom looked like something from 1950, that's not like a praise. That is a problem. And so we need to move forward. And so hopefully in the next, 50 years, we can all be more innovative, be less scared of risks, calculated risk and strategic risks, but we have to change what we're doing because our data across the nation tells us we're not reaching kids. I don't care if you're at a public school, private school, or charter. We are not reaching kids the way we should reach kids. And in my opinion, it's because we haven't changed education fully from when we went to school, let alone 50 years ago. And there's so much more we could do. And, one of the things we're doing in D2 is we're getting rid of seat time. And we are actually going to do hands-on learning and we're going to put kids in internships. And that's how they're going to learn. That's how they're going to change the world, not sitting in however many hours of math so that you check a box. We're going to put you in Northrop Grumman, where you can actually learn applied math. What does that look like in the workforce? And so just really thinking outside the box of how do we change what we're offering kids because kids are asking for it daily. I mean, if you talk to any kids in education, again, doesn't matter the setting, they want something different. They know, especially by high school, that same old thing is pretty boring. And when I think back, it's pretty similar across America, like when I went to school. And we haven't progressed. We have so much more we can do. And with that, maybe learning from other countries, right? Right. What does that look like? And I know different nations have different rules about who has to go to school when. And we like to use that for excuses of why we're not performing as the country. Okay, but what can we still learn? Even if they don't make everyone go, what are they doing with those that have to go? And what does that look like?
100%. I think learning from immediate environments, external environments, super external environments is always important. And I completely agree. I mean, kids across the country, we're just not reaching them, right? That engagement is not there. They don't see the value in education for the most part that we want them to see. And that was always my problem as a student, was I never understood the real world purpose of why we were doing what we were doing. And because of that, it was super hard for me to engage in anything, because why would I care about something that is seemingly unimportant, right? And so
And I
that's
think that's interesting because that is across socioeconomic, across all racial groups, across genders. Like,
yeah,
it's not that just as Title I schools or more affluent schools, that's kids across everywhere, right? And so when we see that pervasive problem or trend, what are we really doing to buck the system? And are we willing to take chances and make changes that are for the betterment of students?
100%. And like you said, it's all about that calculated and strategic risk, right?
Hmm?
That's
Which can be
great.
dangerous. We have accountability systems. I got to lead our accountability task force here in Colorado, and there's a lot of pushback saying, educators just don't want accountability. And that is not the case. What we want is equitable accountability, and what we want is to be held accountable for what matters.
Amen to
Personally,
that.
I don't think sitting in a seat when you've already passed Algebra 2 matters. If you can pass going in, why do you have to sit there for a year? Let's
Yep.
go get some hands-on experience. So, changing how we look at things and the us versus them, and how, educators just don't know. And, I challenge anyone who thinks education is easy or doesn't do a good job to come sub a day in any classroom in any district. Don't care. You will be amazed by what teachers do for our kids daily and don't get the respect that they really deserve. And it's not a noble profession in our nation. And I think that alone could change a lot of work if we really viewed educators as the experts that they are.
100%. 100%. Wendy, this has been a fantastic conversation. Any last shout out to the district, people in the community? Where can people find you?
So you can find me, Harrison School District 2. We are in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We go by D2. We've shortened our name a little bit. And just want to share, we are in the southeast part of Colorado Springs. Love our community, love our kids. Again, I have 13,000 students. I call them 13,000 kids because they're all my babies, and I will fight till the death for them because they deserve every opportunity in the world.
I love it. Wendy, this is a great conversation and super great to have you on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Got an idea, a story, or a question about what we discussed today? We'd love to hear from you. To learn more about Unique Learn, follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube, and visit uniquelearn.co.